Vinayak, hi, good morning. Good to have you on the show. Since there are so many ancillaries of the larger infrastructure story that you track, let me start off with the power demand because in the last 8 months have seen a very, very robust 8% kind of growth thereabouts. With the kind of GDP figures and PMI figures coming in, do you expect the fiscal year energy demand to show double-digit growth?
Look, high single digit or double digit growth is well spoken for. I think everybody who's tracking the power sector has figured out that some interesting dimensions are happening in the market. One, as you rightly said, the domestic consumption across all sectors is growing very, very favorably. Now, added to that is the fact that there has been a conscious slowdown in the addition of fresh thermal capacity in the last few years, with the expectation that renewables would kind of fill the space. Now, what has happened in renewables is that while the execution is, shall we say, energetic, the targets being achieved in commissioning new renewable plants are not in keeping with the targets envisaged a few years ago for various reasons. Land, transmission, the restriction of imports from China, the slower scale up of domestic capacity or domestic capacity selling at better prices to the US. So there's a variety of reasons. The net effect of this is that in the power sector, all these are combining to forecast a scenario where at least certainly in the next 5 to 6 years, power rates are going to go up. So most people are betting on a fairly attractive increase in merchant power rates. And therefore, there is an unwillingness to sign long-term PPAs at relatively lower prices. So I think the government has kind of figured this out and therefore has kind of partially reversed its let's not get excited about coal thermal stance to say that no, in the journey forward, medium to long term, we've got to keep a healthy balance between fresh capacities in coal thermal as well as stepping up capacities in renewables. So net, for private power companies, and since you are looking at stock markets and financials, the next 5 to 6 to even 8 years look very good in terms of the rates that you would get from the market, particularly merchant rates. But let me stop here.
Sure. The government, Vinayak, has already given hints that one needs to look again at thermal as a source of power. Do you think they will have to go to nuclear as well, a hybrid model, fusion that is, given that peak demand would be very difficult to be met by purely renewables?
No, peak demand will never be, the demand will never be made by renewables. See, things like nuclear. There is, as you know, India and US have signed an understanding to promote this new technology called small reactors, small module reactors, SMRs. Now, by the time, and apparently they are going to be installed in PPP mode. Now, these things will take time to unravel. So these are all what I'd call peripheral attempts, but the big, shall I say, striving in the market will be the nuanced setting up of more thermal than envisaged and removing bottlenecks in renewables. So it will be a coal thermal play once again. This year, I think we are going to be adding fresh capacity of about 10 to 12,000 megawatts in coal. And you're going to possibly see this trend again, where fresh new plants in coal thermal get encouraged by the government in parallel with renewable expansion. But everything else is kind of peripheral. And within things like hybrid and storage and all that are within the renewables game. So I'm treating renewables as one basket. And the real trick ahead is to actually reverse a rather hard stand earlier of no coal thermal, and which the government is doing and saying, no, we need coal thermal and we are going to go about in a more practical, nuanced way.
Vinayak, so if energy transition is the big theme both locally and globally, which end of the energy transition do you think would be a successful one? For example, wind has not been successful. Solar has that own issue of start and stop and start and stop. Green hydrogen is still a concept on paper in terms of what it can potentially achieve. So if energy transition is the theme, who would be the biggest beneficiary?
Look, energy transition is certainly happening. And you would probably see a 3:1 ratio between new capacity in renewables versus new capacity in coal thermal or traditional sources. Now, coming to your question, it is obvious that in renewables, the real game is in solar. But earlier, the emphasis was on setting up solar generation capacity. Now, there is a lot of pipeline on that happening across the country. In Kutch in Gujarat, Khara, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, across in the south, Tamil Nadu, there's a lot of fresh renewable capacity that's coming up. But the emphasis has now moved to storage because, as you rightly pointed out, this business that when the sun sets and I can't produce more energy is actually becoming dysfunctional for the market. So the real action now in renewables is actually moved to storage, and storage comes in three sizes. First is obviously battery storage. The second is pump hydro storage, where you use renewables during sunshine hours to pump up water, and at night time the water comes down, cascades down, and runs turbines and generates power. So you're able to run renewable 24/7. And the third is, of course, hydrogen and green hydrogen, green ammonia, or hydrogen and ammonia. So today the market is very attuned to saying, let's now focus more and more on storage solutions, along with obviously setting up renewables capacity. That's the new game in town. Storage is the new game in town in renewables. Even bids are coming out asking for 24/7 power.
When I speak to some power producers and companies which in a sense are offering storage technology, their view is that there could be a dramatic cut or drop in cost of storage. It's like floppy disk. Every year the cost of memory storage keeps on coming down. Could that same happen to, let's say, storage and other modes of alternate energy? Because there was a time when solar power was 15 rupees a unit. Now it's down to about 3.5 rupees a unit.
Storage has its constraints. I don't think it's following the same trajectory as the rapid decline in solar module development, which has been largely a very fast and furious technical development in terms of giving more and more power to the panel to soak in more sunlight, to soak in the same sunlight and produce more power. In the case of storage, really, if you forget hydrogen and ammonia in the short to medium term, we are left with battery and pump storage. So far as battery is concerned, I think we have the issue of getting adequate supplies of lithium. While there are innovations in technology happening, the broad feeling is that it's not happening at the fast pace that you saw in computer chips or in solar modules. It's a far lower trajectory of reduction of cost. So far as pump storage is concerned, it's a pure civil engineering, civil construction play. That you've got a structure that lifts water up and then it falls down. So there is a limitation on how much you can do in pump storage. But these two are major factors that will change the renewables game in terms of producing a fresh new capacity for storage, which will take the renewables business to a 24/7 market as distinct from a sunshine only market.
Every time we've interacted with you, you've always obliged our viewers with some ideas which would be actionable. You may have guessed my question by now, which is that if one is looking at investing, which end of the market, in your eye, is going to see earnings growth? I'm just going to bring this for our viewers. 4 years ago, Vinayak was of the view, invest in infra companies. They've done very well. Then he was of the view that you look at companies which would benefit because of water connectivity. They've done rather well. So what's the next big idea where our viewers can have some actionable, thing?
Look, in the construction-based infrastructure, I think you yourself would have tracked the very large increases in order book in companies like L&T and Megha and various other construction companies arising out of very rapid increase in public expenditure and infra. So construction companies are still attractive. The ones that are well run are still attractive. And as we just finished the discussion, and even distribution companies, discoms, are actually spending a fair amount of money on smart metering. So I think, and there is a lot of work happening in the revamp of distribution circles. So people in the cables, insulators, smart meter businesses, which supply goods and services to the electricity distribution market, are worth careful scrutiny. And finally, with all this discussion on power sector and the fact that beyond the medium term, in the next 5 to 8 years, India is actually going to see a rising trajectory of increasing power rates. All generating companies, whether in thermal or in renewables, are actually going to see a long period of very attractive profitability. So power generation companies certainly would be my priority for today's discussion.
Generation, battery storage or energy storage, it could be pump, it could be something else, and largely companies which has got to do with the road. These are the three themes, right?
Right.
Well,
You got it.
well, thank you very much. I mean, you've been very, very explicit, and you've been very you made it very simple for our viewers. Even though who says infrastructure complicated?
It's not. It's actually very simple.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.